In today's video, I'm doing a little bit of cleanup. It is time for pruning and getting the yard pre-spring ready. So one of my reminders is Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day is my reminder for flowers and love. And so that reminds me that it's time to tend to anything that's in my yard that'll bloom. And speaking of Valentine's, this rose bush that I'm working on here was a Valentine's gift from my daughters several Valentines ago. It was really cute when I received it, tiny and just very petite. Well, it's been here in my garden for several years and it's a gift that keeps on giving. You might have noticed that before I started pruning on this rose bush, I disinfected my pruners with some alcohol. It's very important to keep your pruners clean and disease-free. The last thing you want to do is spreading the disease onto your plants. So I just carry a little alcohol bottle with me and spray it on my pruners before I start in on something. If you're new here, I'm Diane from Diane's Garden, and I'm gardening in California, in Central California actually, and my gardening zone is 9B. And in today's video, like I said, it's around Valentine's Day, so I'm going to be tending to all my flowers. Everything that blooms is going to be tended to. Now, I don't have a ton of time on my hands today, so I don't know that I'm going to get to all of my flowers, but I'm definitely going to do as much as I can. And what I find that works for me is I do time blocks. So I'm giving myself 1 hour to work in the garden this morning before I have to get going to something else. So off I get to, there's weeding that needs to be done. And I am always said that see a weed, pull a weed. But it's been busy quite lately. And so I haven't really tended to my weeds. So there are not too many in these beds here. I've got other beds that have a lot more weeds that need tending to. But I figure if I keep up with it, it's so much easier than letting it all go. So one of my tasks that I'm going to be working on today is my Limelight Hydrangeas. So in my front yard, I have 7 Limelight Hydrangeas, and I'm hoping that I could get to all of them today. And I'll kind of give you some tips on what I'm doing as I'm pruning these hydrangeas. But again, I want to remind you that keep Valentine's Day as a day to remind you to tend to flowers. It's a great time to start thinking about cleaning them up and start fertilizing them so that you have nice, beautiful blooms come this spring and summer. And speaking of spring, as I was out here, I was noticing my tulips are starting to come up. Yes, that's a tulip. So I think about 5 years ago, I purchased a bunch of tulip bulbs from Color Blends. This is the Twin Peaks variety. They're pinks and reds and very pretty. And typically, tulips do not naturalize in my area in Garden Zone 9B, but they have been coming back for me. Now, they're not as strong and beautiful as they were the first year, but still, I welcome any tulips that wants to return back to my garden is welcome too. Now here I'm working on my snowball viburnum. And this snowball viburnum is just so beautiful when it blooms. The blooms actually almost look like they're hydrangeas. And in this case, this has a lot of branches that are crossing, and I just need to kind of thin it out a little bit so that it has more airflow. But this snowball viburnum is just beautiful when it's all bloom. The blooms are so vibrant. It's really a chartreuse green. But there's a lot of branches that are crossing. You can see there, they're crossing. So I pick the strongest one and keep it and then get rid of the other one. So just to, again, kind of thin it out and give it some more airflow. I don't remember what year I planted this viburnum here, but it definitely is getting to be a multi-branch. And I want to kind of do it like a little tree form. I think that'd be really pretty, especially because it anchors this corner of my home and garden. Love this. Well, time to get on to the next hydrangea. Oh, and there's Charlie. He's coming to help too. Can you see how many tulips are coming up around this hydrangea? Oh my goodness. Spring is coming. So in regards to the hydrangeas, the first thing I do is kind of deadhead the spent blooms. So those are gone first. So when tending to hydrangeas, I think of 3 Ds. I want to remove 3 Ds: deadhead, diseased, and damaged. So I just go through and I take care of those 3 Ds. And then of course I do some size control and decide, if anything is crisscrossing. I don't want any branches crossing each other. I'd like to take the branches that are growing towards the out versus towards the center of the plant. Anyway, just kind of clean it up a little bit. And you can see as I go and I'm trimming, I'm also weeding. See a weed, pull a weed. Now some of these hydrangeas I just added last year, so they're smaller than a couple of the ones that I already had here from previous years. So I'm trying to do a little size control and keep them down all to the same level. Oh, there's Charlie. God, he's just so fast. Anyway, this one here is one of my smaller limelights. And so I'm going to trim off just a little bit from this one, not as much as I did on the other. And I have to be really careful when I'm doing this because Charlie gets right into my way and I'm afraid that I'm going to cut his little paws. So before I actually cut on my pruners, I have to make sure that I'm, being safe with Charlie around. But as you could tell, he just wants to play. So recently we had some rain, and now with the sunshine, the weeds are just loving it, right? They're just doing their thing. So I just find that it's easier to keep up with it and get them while they're small. And because it just rained, it is a lot easier to pull them. I'm not even having to use a little shovel. And look at the acanthus. Oh my goodness. This plant is also known as bear's breech. And it, was cut down completely to the bottom and it has re-flushed out. This green is just so pretty and I think anchors the front door so well. Plus it's a great place to hide my Amazon boxes. Over here I have an Alexandrine magnolia tree. And then I want to point out, so this hydrangea that's here by my front door, this one is a macrophylla. This is the kind of hydrangea that has the pink or the blue blooms. In my case, they're usually pink. It's starting to bud out, but this hydrangea I will not prune. This one does not get any pruning because if I did, I would be getting rid of the flowers. I'd have no blooms this spring. Now, last fall, early fall, I did a hard prune on this hydrangea, and I was really worried about, not getting any blooms this spring, but I think I did it in time. But again, do not prune the macrophylla hydrangeas. I'm only pruning the limelights. But look at my Alexandria magnolia tree is starting to already bud up. This is the really pretty purple blooms that come first sign of spring for me. Is when this thing starts to bloom. One of my favorites. So in this container, I have a purple fountain grass that needs to be trimmed back. And I'm going to take it all the way down to the very bottom. And then it will rebloom for me because it is a perennial grass. Now, I'll have to share with you, purple fountain grass is not one of my favorites. It's not something that I would, typically choose to put into my garden. But I had this one gifted to me from my mom, and I planted it here. And guess what? I think I'm loving it. I really do like how it did look. So, purple fountain grass, yep, it's growing on me. And here I'm repairing my little Valentine's sign that I picked up from the Dollar Tree. Just add a little bit of Valentine's to my front door. And then look here, I've got little pansies that self-seeded and are coming back on their own. That's a nice little spring bonus. And look at the lemon coral sedum. Oh my goodness. It is looking so pretty. I thought that the frost was going to bother it, but maybe it's just protected enough. I don't know. I want to show you, when you're cutting your Limelight hydrangeas, you want to give it a cut right above a bud. That's called a node. So right above that node, you don't want to get too close to it and you don't want to get too far from it. So this is a nice little diagram that shows you just where you need to make your cut. Wow, isn't this beautiful? It's so pretty. This was actually my very first Limelight hydrangea that I added to my garden. So this one's been here quite a few years, and it makes a difference as far as size goes. Here's what it looks like when it's in full bloom. So that's it for today's gardening. I've got an event to get ready to get to, so I'm just happy that I took a little bit of time to get at least the front done. So I want to thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for watching, and until next time, happy gardening. And YouTube is recommending this video for you, so I invite you to check it out.